Hey boys and girls, Tim with Little Crow Gunworks. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to talk about a few different things, kind of how we started this process with this rifle, because it was pretty much brand new when we started playing with it. We're going to talk about barrel break-in, and we're going to talk about first steps, kind of what we did with this rifle through the lens of, okay, you have a new gun, and what do you do with it? How do you break it in? What should you do with the first, say, 100 rounds you put through the barrel? And what's a good use of time, and what should you be doing rather than just going to the range and dumping ammo through it willy-nilly? What can we actually get out of it and do in those first 100 rounds? So before we dive into that, I want to, as usual, say thank you to you guys for your continued support. Today is April 23rd, and by the end of the day, we'll be breaking 12,000 subscribers, which is just insane, considering we broke 5,000 on December 28th. So we're, whatever that is, 4 months to go from 5,000 to 12,000. So it's pretty incredible. So thank you guys for that. Appreciate all the comments, and I'm doing my best to answer as many of them as I can. But on the Fridays, when these videos are released, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we're getting hundreds of comments, and there's no hope for me to answer all of them one by one. I'm keeping an eye on what you guys are asking for questions, and for the most part, what you're asking and stuff's going to be addressed as we go along. So I don't think at this time I need to spend any time dedicated to just answering questions that haven't been answered yet. I've had some guys ask about a tutorial video on how to download GRT and that sort of thing, and I think there's other videos out there on that. So I don't know if that's a good use of time, but assuming you have the program, I'm going to show you what you need to do to make your stuff shoot better. So I think we'll start by talking about barrel break-in. This is a hotly contested, widely debated subject that I think gets way more lip service than it deserves. For those of you that are seasoned veterans of the channel, you guys know that I don't do any special barrel break-in. And Dale doesn't either, really. I know there's a ton of different theories on this. I think for the most part they're all nonsense. I really don't think doing any special barrel break-in shooting and cleaning process does anything for a barrel, positively or negatively. So if you like to do a special process and you feel like it's helping you, great, keep doing it. But I don't think it does anything one way or the other, positively or negatively. Depending on who you ask, like in the competition circles, a lot of those guys don't do any break-in. I mean, their version of break-in, because the guys that are competing at the very top level, they're buying barrels in bunches, so they'll buy whatever, 6, 8, 10 of them at a time that are all the same. And when they shoot one out, they'll cut a new one with the same reamer that's of the exact same specs as what they're taking off. They'll screw the new one on, and then to break it in, they'll just start shooting their ammo from the last barrel. They don't even bother doing a special break-in process or cleaning or load development or whatever. They just start running the same ammo from the last barrel and see how it shoots. That's step one. They'll go out and just bang away, sight the gun in and shoot it and whatever, and just basically try to not get the barrel hot. And that's the extent of their break-in. And that's kind of the way I look at it too. I think I've said this in the 7mm series, but I really think that the barrel break-in process that companies recommend, the only real function that serves is to get you to slow down. So you don't just go out and bang away and shoot a bunch of rounds through it as fast as possible, trying to, well, that first group wasn't very good, let me shoot another group. Well, that wasn't very good, let me shoot a third group. Well, that wasn't very good, and then pretty soon the thing's red hot and you can't even touch it. When in reality, the barrel does act up a lot and will throw shots, and your average point of impact will migrate around, and even though you're not touching the scope, your groups will move around a lot and it'll spit shots out, and it'll do that for the first 20 or 30 rounds usually, just at random. It'll shoot one really nice group, and then it'll shoot a crappy one and spit shots out, and then it'll shoot another really nice one. And it's really unstable for the first little bit in general, regardless of the manufacturer, no matter who made the barrel or if it's hand lapped or what. In general, factory barrels will do that for over 100 rounds. They'll be really erratic. So we usually recommend putting 100 rounds through a barrel before you do any constructive, super constructive testing, because it's changing so much. And if you're not really experienced, that can be really confusing and discouraging, and on and on. There's a long list of things that can go wrong in the first, say, 100 rounds of a barrel's life that can set you up for failure. A lot of times what guys will do is they'll sight the gun in, and then they'll start load development right away. And that's fine. You can do that. However, if you guys watch the 7mm Showdown series, you saw what happens with that, where you go out and you start doing ladder tests right away, and the velocities that each charge weight will give you are whatever they are. Well, then as you progress through that first 100 and some odd rounds on the barrel, the velocities that those charge weights gave you the first time are going to constantly be moving. So, if you have a load that shot really good at 2,700 feet per second, and it was whatever charge, well, if you just go out and keep shooting that same charge, eventually your velocity is going to migrate out of and above 2,700 feet per second, and the group's going to go to hell, and it's not going to shoot well anymore, and you're going to go, well, what the heck? It was shooting really good at this charge weight, and now it doesn't shoot well anymore. Well, if you don't put two and two together and realize that the barrel sped up and your velocity's higher, and now you're not in that sweet spot that you were in anymore, you need to take powder out to get back down to that velocity, and then it'll shoot again. And I'm going to beat that to death as we go through the series here, that guns want to shoot in velocity windows. And I'll show you how to find it, but depending on how it groups and how it shoots, there's a window where it's going to shoot well. And if you migrate out of that window for any reason, temperature, charge weight, barrel fouling, barrel wear, whatever, if for whatever reason your velocity falls out of that window, the precision is going to go to hell. Regardless of what you're doing with charge weight and temperature and whatever, you're basically trying to do whatever you can to stay in that window of velocity, and then the gun will shoot. So for break-in, you can just go out and bang away with 100 rounds at 100 yards and just shoot groups to your heart's content and try not to get the gun hot. But to me, that's kind of boring. So what we did in this series was we decided, okay, I mentioned that I had some Alliant Reloader 15 that I was going to get rid of. That's obsolete to me, and I'm going to burn it up, and then I'm done buying Alliant powder. Well, I said, okay, I have some Alliant powder I want to burn up. I'll show you what we do in Gordon's here, but I'm going to go out and try a few different charge weights. And whichever one of those charge weights, I went out and shot, I was going to shoot 3. Whichever one shoots the best, that's what I'm going to use for the remaining 100 rounds to break in the barrel. With no load development, no seating depth, no nothing. Just based on throwing some charge weights at the wall. Whichever one shot the best, that's what we're going to do. And then I also took out a couple groups with IMR 4064 and IMR 4895. And I'll show you how I found those and what I decided to pick to go out and shoot. And then, so we'll go into Gordon's here, show you how I selected those, take you out to the range, show me shooting the gun a little bit. And you guys can see my positioning behind the rifle and what I was talking about in the consistency video about where I actually have the stock and how my face is and how my head's oriented vertically and kind of the way I set up behind the gun, and see me shooting that a little bit. And then we'll switch over to a camera that was on target so you can see how the groups went, and then we'll come back and discuss each of the group metrics and then what our next steps are from there. So I think that's enough on barrel break-in, I guess, to summarize. Don't get wrapped around the axle on that. because it's not that important. Basically, you're just trying to let the barrel settle in and kind of get a feel for what it's telling you, and don't get it hot, and whatever. If you want to run some patches down the barrel in between there, knock yourself out, but I don't think it does anything. So you do what you want to do. So I think that's enough on that. I think we'll rev up the screen recording here. 3, 2, 1, and we're live. Okay. So we have our 308 Winchester pulled up here. Kind of a continuation from the powder videos, where we have all our inputs up here, have our max allowed pressure up to 62,000, our case length that I trimmed everything to, case volume as measured by our fired water capacity, which I showed you guys how to do that, our cartridge overall length that we started with, which was 2.820 inches, 26-inch barrel. That 2.820 worked out to 20 thousandths jump. See down here for bullet jump. Rifle weight was 13 1/4. I don't know why that changed. And then twist was 1 12. We still have our 175 grain Sierra Match King in here, with everything left alone, the initial pressure and everything left alone. So I've had a few people in the comments mention how to true this, because I said I was using initial pressure, and other people have said use the OBT optimal barrel time function to true it. And then one fella said, maybe two, I think two different guys said, this combustion coefficient right here is the best way to true it. And I've been playing with that, and I think I have to agree. It seems to be the most logical way to true this without messing with the initial pressure, because messing with the initial pressure does screw up your ability to use this optimal barrel time function. And at the end of the day, pressure equals velocity. So whatever we're tweaking to true it, as long as when you tweak it, velocity and pressure go up together, then it's a logical truing function. If they move inverse to each other, then it's illogical, because pressure equals velocity. That's how you get speed, is from the pressure. How you get that pressure doesn't really matter, whether it's through charge weight, or going from a standard primer to a Magnum primer, or fouling, excessive fouling in the barrel will raise pressure, or laying the ammo in the sun, or getting the barrel hot and then letting the loaded round sit in there for a number of seconds before you shoot. Like any of those things raises pressure and therefore raises velocity. So I've found, playing with this combustion coefficient, that I think it was as you raise this number, the pressure increases. It might be the inverse, but we'll figure it out here. As this is new to me and I learned something new, I don't have it memorized, and it doesn't really matter, because like I said, you're just, as long as you true it, I don't think it matters too much how you get there. But this combustion coefficient does seem most logical. So I already have Alliant Reloader 15 in here, and what I did was I just played with some charge weights to try to figure out a moderate pressure, a few different moderate pressure loads for me to go out and shoot, so that way I wouldn't be wrecking any brass, and I just could find something that was middle of the road so that I could use it to break the barrel in. So I ended up playing with different charge weights in here. So we'll start with 44 grains. You see, when I put in 44 grains, it comes up at 56,588 psi. Very mild load. It's predicting 2692 on the velocity. When I was going to go out and test last fall, it was going to be 70 degrees. So I do have my powder temperature here at 70. 98.6% load ratio. Awesome. Burnt propellant, 100%. Perfect, right? Remember from our powder video, this is what we want. So I thought, well, okay, 44 seems like a good middle of the road number. I'll do half grain increments, which are way too big for a cartridge this size. But I thought I'll bring out 43.5 grains, which was still Good load ratio, 97.5%, 100% burned, 2664 on the velocity, 54,559 psi. I thought, okay, I'll bring out that charge weight, go up half a grain to 44, and then bring 44.5 as well. So 3 middle of the road charges that are from just below 55,000 psi to just over 58. Very tame, right? Nothing to worry about there. So I loaded up 5 shots of each of those, and then I thought, okay, what are the 2 contenders for powder that I actually want to use in the series? So Reloader 15 I was just using to try to get rid of it. And I was using 175 Sierra Match Kings. I went and bought another box just for this, just to break the barrel in. That obviously wasn't the same lot number as the bullets I was going to use for the series. So I just bought another box just because it was going to be a unique scenario, and it didn't matter that the lot number didn't matter or didn't match because I was just using it to break the barrel in. So I had 100 of those, and I thought, well, I'll try these 3 different charge weights. Whichever one shoots the best by my standards is what I'll use to break it in. And then I thought, all right, the 2 other contender powders that I might want to use for the series are off of my list of powders. They were both in that gray category. IMR 4064 and IMR 4895. The 2 old, antiquated boomer powders that most people wouldn't give the time of day. They're both fantastic powders, and they're both excellent choices for a 308 with many different bullet weights. But I did have experience personally in one of my 308s with a 175 Match King and IMR 4064. So because I already had experience with that, I really didn't want to use it. But I had enough to use it. So I thought, well, I'll just load up one group with that and then one group with IMR 4895, which is what I did want to use because I had never used it before. And again, I didn't want you guys to think I'm cherry picking everything. So I thought I'd really like to use a powder that I've never used in a 308 and just let the process speak for itself. So for IMR 4064, we'll put that in here. I tried to do the same thing, like just find middle of the road charge weights. And I landed on 42.44 grains. And I think the reason I did that was because of the optimal barrel time. But we'll see, my inputs might have been slightly different. Yeah, so they were slightly different. So now I guess is a good time to talk very briefly about optimal barrel time. Optimal barrel time is a theory invented by a guy named Chris Long. So if you want to know a lot about it, just go on Google and search Chris Long optimal barrel time, and you'll find as much as you would ever want to read on it or watch. So the theory is that because the barrel is moving as the bullet's going down the barrel, there's a certain point in time where the muzzle is in an ideal place for you to shoot small groups. That is an extremely crude summary of the theory. So if you want to know more about it, go watch it in your own time. I'm not going to spend a bunch of time on it because I don't think it matters that much. But it can be kind of a cheat code to get something that shoots, at least sub-MOA. In my experience, the best load for any gun I've ever plugged in here, the best load was not on an optimal barrel time. Ever. I've never had a scenario where the best load I can wring out of a gun is on an optimal barrel time. That doesn't mean the optimal barrel times don't shoot, because they usually do, as long as your inputs are good. But for me, the best load has never been on an optimal barrel time. So that said, if you click on this OBT optimal barrel time icon at the top, it's going to pop up this little menu. If you have trued velocity data, you can input that right here So like if you go out and actually tested this 42.44 grains and you know the average velocity, you can punch it in there and it will true it based on that. But if you don't have that information, you can just click this compute OBT and then it'll pop up this other page. Make that bigger, and then that might be too big. No, I think that's okay. So then, well, maybe not. Let me pull that up again. I think I lost some of the menu, so we'll just make it a little bigger here. So you guys that are watching it on a cell phone can actually see something. Okay, so when we pull this up, you want right away you want to click this compute node charge adjustment, and you see it'll tell you, okay, the node number 4.5, which is going to be like middle of the road, closest to the charge weight you have input on this other page. It'll say the optimal barrel time charge weight is 42.62 grains. And I must have an input different from when I did this originally, because originally it came up with 42.44 and it said it was going to be a pressure of 58,335, which is not bad. It's warm, but not too much, and predicts a velocity of 2669, load ratio 95.7%, burnt propellant 100%. So I loaded up 5 of those, and I thought, well, I'll just throw 5 rounds downrange at an optimal barrel time and just see how it does with IMR 4064. Now, if you want, you can go to this little drop down and then you could select different nodes. And as you go higher on the nodes, like to number 4, number 3.5, number 3, they're going to be higher pressure. So you have to click number 4 and then come over here and hit the compute button again. And see, that's 44.07 grains, but it's way up at 65,000 PSI. Yuck. 2749 feet per second. Still fits in the case, 99% load ratio, 100% burnt propellant, blah, blah. But at 65,000 PSI, this PMC brass would probably be single use. You know, if you have Peterson brass, 65,000 is kind of the safe limit where you'll get decent brass life. Lapua, you can shoot 65,000, no problem. Alpha, same. But Norma, probably same. But most other manufacturers, other than the ones I mentioned, ADG, too, you can shoot up here. Most other manufacturers, Nosler, Hornady, Winchester, on and on, all the other usual suspects, you get up around 65,000 PSI, you're going to have pretty bad brass life because the primer pocket starts, the case head and the rim start moving away from the primer, and the primer pocket gets loose, and once it doesn't hold the primer, there's no way to fix that, and you throw it away. And also I've noticed too, in general, once you crest 65,000 PSI and go over that, most cartridges, under most conditions, speaking in generalities, shoot like shit. So there isn't a lot of incentive to go up this high or higher than this, because in general, I found things don't shoot very well anyway. They get super erratic. They shoot big. If they don't shoot big and they shoot small, they don't do it consistently, or you'll get big point of impact shifts, like it might shoot small all the time, but the point of impact will move around, which for anything but short range bench thrust is useless. So then if you go back into this menu, so we went one above our starting node. If we go one below and hit the compute button again, it drags us all the way down to 50,646, which is fine. You know, that doesn't mean you can't operate there, but again, that's at the bottom. So I said in the powder video that I like to test between 50 and whatever I deem my max, 62 or 65. Well, I just showed you that the center node that we ended up loading was 58 and change thousand PSI. The node above it was right at 65, and the node below it is way down at 50. So we're at the extreme ends, and there's only one in the middle. So I thought, that's the one I'll load. The one that's in the middle, not at the top, not at the bottom. Screw it. I'll load up 5 of those. And then for, I loaded up 5 at 42.44 grains, and then IMR 4895. I think I did the exact same thing. That one I ended up loading 43.36. I have the ability to go to the second decimal place because of my scale. Same deal. Okay. So then if we hit the compute button, 43.54. Again, it's slightly off, and I'm not sure why. I don't know if I have an input that's slightly different. I think what it might be is because the original fired water capacity I had in there, when it was fired as factory ammo, because when I gathered water capacity, I just shot 3 rounds of that PMC factory ammo. The case capacity it gave me was 55.1, not this 55.38, which is the average that I got after I had hand loaded it and then checked the water capacity again later. So I'm guessing that's the difference, is when I figured out these OBTs originally, I had this at 55.1. 43.54. So it's still off for some reason, but at any rate, you see how this works, where I came in here, just hit the compute node charge adjustment. It spit out a charge weight that was 57,500 PSI, good load ratio, good burnt propellant, bingo. Wrote that down and went out and tested those. So now I think I'll take you out to the range and show you me shooting the gun a little bit and show the groups that we fired, the 3 different charge weights, reloader 15, and then the IMR 4064 and IMR 4895. Then we'll come back and analyze the groups. All right, now we're out at the range with the 308. We're just, the rifle has been sighted in the past, and we're just going to be testing the 3 different charge weights of the powder that I'm trying to get rid of, that we're going to use to break the barrel in. And then we're also going to try our 2 different powders at the charge weights that I loaded, just to see, get a feel for the powder and see if the rifle's preferring one over the other. These are both well-known accuracy powders for the 308, so I'm guessing they're going to shoot about the same, but we'll see how it goes. We're going to start with the middle charge weight that I brought for the powder that I'm trying to get rid of. We'll start with that, see how that goes. We'll rip a few shots and let you guys see that, and then I'll take you down range and get some footage of the remaining groups. We're going to be shooting off of our Thoroughfare tripod for the entirety of the project, so you guys will be seeing that a lot. And because this is an ammo calibration, I'm using my extra support in the back here, just to make sure I got everything as dialed in as I possibly can. And that we're just testing the ammo, trying to eliminate me as much as we can. .770 on the velocity. Primer's flat, looks good otherwise. No ejector marks or anything weird. Haven't shot reloader 15 in a while. I forgot how much it stinks. Usually I like to smell burnt powder, but loader 15 doesn't smell very good. Don't need much cooling time between shots because it is a 308 after all.
Still looks good. Accuracy's nothing to write home about, but this is looking a lot more promising. Wow. 3 shots so far, 1 snaggly hole. I think that first charge weight was just a little too hot. Holy moly. That is SM all. Pretty good for just throwing something together. Ah, of course. Why wouldn't it throw one out? That's still really good though. I'll take it for just haphazardly slapping a load together. Only caught 4 of the 5 shots. Stream spread was 9 feet a second. We'll take it. That's plenty good to break the barrel in. We'll get a measurement here. Alright. Now, you can see the first 2 groups we shot. So the one in the center is the one I shot first. That was a higher charge weight. And didn't seem to be very happy with it. And then the second group I shot is on the left there. That shot way better. You get 4 bullets in one hole and then 1 bullet right on the dot. So I'm gonna set to 0 for the cluster of 4. I'm gonna adjust it left and up a little bit and set our 0 for that, and then shoot the remaining 2 groups on the bottom, which are the 2 different powders that I think we're gonna end up using for the project. And then that top charge weight, which was going to be in the upper right, we're not going to shoot. You guys can see it's super windy, and that may be why that 5th shot went on the dot there, but who knows, could just be the dispersion of the group. So I'm going to get a measurement real quick and then go back and shoot these last 2 groups and call it a day.
Okay, so we see that this rifle really wants to shoot, and our middle charge weight of Reloader 15 that I decided to start with was not at the tame, whatever I had, 56,000 PSI. I don't know if that's because the powder is really old. So yeah, so 44 grains should have been 57,330 PSI. And the powder is really old, so I don't know if it has dried out to some degree, and therefore I'm getting more kernels for a certain given charge weight, and that's why the velocity and pressure was way higher. But we'll go through truing it here real quick based on adjusting this combustion coefficient. So the average velocity for that charge weight, which you saw, I guess I'll go into this in a second. The average velocity was way up at 2790. You see we're at 2700 now, so we have to gain 90 feet per second. So we're at 0.5889. So if I go 0.59, yeah, it goes up. Okay, so we'll do 0.60, 0.61, 0.63, 0.64. So as we go up with this combustion coefficient and make this number larger, pressure and velocity go up. So 2791, we can probably call that close enough. 0.639. Yeah, 2790. Okay, so we see that after we true this and get our velocity average up to actual, which was 2790, we're at 66,402 PSI. Not good. Remember what I just got done saying about how I usually set my ceiling at 65,000 for peak precision. For this series, we set it at 62, but you only had to get 1,400 PSI over 65,000 and it shot like shit. Comparatively to everything else, you see the gun wants to shoot. You see what it's capable of. Pounding shots, shot after shot in the same hole. Wow. You only had to get up a little over 65 and it just starts turning into a shotgun. Comparatively. So I speculated that pressure was too high. It was. Obviously I didn't have a computer with me. Just based on experience, I could tell, okay, first group shot relatively big, go down a charge weight and everything comes together, well, and the velocity was really high for that bullet weight, that tells me right there that the middle one was too high. Come back home and true it, sure enough it is. So the second one, now that this is trued, if we go down to 43.5, we see that was still warmer than I wanted to run at, 64,000. So that would be a little bit harder on the brass, but I ended up sticking with that anyway. And the average velocity is right where it should be. So this says 2764. Actual average velocity was 2762. So within 2 feet a second. We'll call that trued good enough. Still really good load ratio, 100% burnt propellant. And I probably could have set 65,000 as a ceiling for this and just saw, experimented to see how that PMC brass tolerated it. But I didn't really want to, and to be honest, when I came home, I didn't concern myself with this too much. I just thought, well, it shoots good. I think it's under max pressure, so that's what I ran with. And then now I think we'll go into the groups and just look at the particular analytics of each one. So here we have our 4 groups in total. And this is probably a good time to talk about testing metrics. I always use plain corrugated cardboard because I think, and I always shoot at 1/2-inch orange dots because I think it gives you the best chance to perform at your best because you don't have a bunch of visual distractions on here to distract you from the goal, which is bisecting that little orange circle or staying centered on that orange circle the best way you can and making the best shots you possibly can and not having any lines or ink on that circle or anywhere else for that matter so that you can focus as best you can. I also like to use corrugated cardboard because it cuts perfect clean holes in the cardboard. And when you start shooting really small, like this IMR 4895, if that was regular paper, that's unsupported by chicken wire or whatever, that's going to look like one snaggly hole, and you're not going to have a way to measure that group size. So I use cardboard because it cuts perfectly clean holes that allows you to get perfectly clean measurements. Because when you start shooting small, you have to be able to do that to separate the wheat from the chaff. So all right, now we'll look at each one individually. So reloader 15, charge weight number 2, what we started with. Velocity average was 2790, as I already mentioned, too high. Extreme spread was 28. This is another thing I'll notice is that comparatively to lower charge weights, not only will you see the group start to open up when your pressure gets too high, the ES will do the same thing. It starts getting unhappy in every way you can imagine. Group was 1.349 because of this one that spit way out. And a lot of times you'll see that too, where the group won't be complete garbage, but it'll start spraying them. It'll throw one here, throw one there. And the ES will be high, and just comparatively to lower charge weights, it'll just get erratic, which is why you don't want to chase velocity and you don't want to be at the top, because this is how it shoots in general. 1.349 inches in MOA is 1.288. And then the vertical minute of angle from center to center of these two shots is 0.619 MOA. And I'm going to beat this to death in the series. I'll go into why that is important. I'm not going to go into it now, but I will as we go along here. And then the lowest charge weight of reloader 15, you see by comparison, this is a dumpster fire compared to this. And that's what you'll see when you get up near the top. 2762, see our ES is only 9. Up here it was 28. Group size is much smaller, and it's really trying to shoot here. Group, even with that flyer, was only 0.724 inches, which is 0.691 MOA. That cluster of 4 shots is a 236 sub-quarter MOA. We're done. So a lot of guys would fold their tent and be done at this point, but I wanted to see what we could wring out of this and had a whole series planned, so I kept going. Vertical minute of angle really good, 0.231, despite that flyer. That's still spectacular. So for me, this was plenty good to break the barrel in, despite the fact that it spit one out. So as I said in the video, I set my 0 for the center of this cluster, went up a click and left 2, set my 0, and then that's what we're going to use to break the barrel in at long range. IMR 4064, again, I mentioned that I have already used this personally, so I didn't really want to use it, but I thought I had enough. I'll just shoot it and see how it goes. Velocity average 2688. I think that was a lot closer to what Gordon's predicted. Where are we at? 42.44, 2665. Yeah, so within almost, inside of 20 feet per second. Or no, 23 feet per second away. So still plenty safe. Extreme spread of 28. That's not terrible. For 5 shots, it's average, I guess, if you're using an appropriate burn rate powder and you have enough barrel length for the powder you're using and you use a good scale and on and on. An ES of 28 isn't bad. For you standard deviation guys, maybe this is a good time to talk about that. Standard deviation would be about 9.2. I don't use standard deviation. I've mentioned this in many videos in the past. To me, it is a useless number. Why is that? Well, because it's a predictive number, meaning you use it to try to predict the velocity of your next shot. Well, if you're using a predictive number based on a sample size of 3 to 5 shots, it's a pretty useless number, where extreme spread encompasses all the shots and it tells you the whole story. So, and there's other people I've mentioned. Brian Litz has said verbatim the same thing, that on small sample sizes, standard deviation is a useless number. So we will not be using it in this series because it has no value to me. Group on this one, even with that flyer, was 0.823 inches, which works out to 0.786 MOA. That cluster, again, was about a 1/4 inch, 0.252. And the vertical minute of angle was outstanding, only 0.202 MOA from this shot to this shot. Fantastic. We'll go on to what we ended up choosing for the series, IMR 4895. This one shot the best that day, and it shot good enough that I was comfortable moving forward with it for the series because I had not loaded it in a 308 before. Velocity average 2769. Very fast. This is up near the top of the pressure ceiling that we set for this series. Extreme spread of 20. Group was 0.435, so sub half-inch group. Works out to 0.415 MOA. Spectacular. Vertical minute of angle 0.335, which is still pretty darn good. So let's see what we got for time here. Probably creeping up on a hour-long video. So we see here that basically what I was trying to do, get back to this other screen, I just wanted to go out, throw a few rounds through the gun, not really get in a hurry. The gun was already sighted in from when I shot the water capacity, crudely sighted in. So I wanted to go out, try a few different charge weights. Again, ended up not shooting the top one because I knew it was too hot. And the lowest charge weight of reloader 15 is plenty suitable to break this barrel in. So that's the charge weight we're going to use at long range. And then dabbling with IMR 4064 and 4895. Clearly either one would have been a good choice for the series, but I had enough of both. Just wanted to use 4895 and it ended up shooting the best that day. So now we're going to go, the next video is going to be me showing you the actual loading process. This is kind of tough for me because I don't know where you guys are at. Like, some of you have a new gun and you're trying to figure out what to do. Some of you have an existing gun and you have brass that's ready to size, and you want to know what tests to run, and on and on. So I'm trying to do the best I can and put this in a logical order, but I'm trying to hit a moving target because so many of you are in a different place in what, the status of your brass and your gun, and on and on. So I'm just doing the best I can, and I want to show you what we did. So now, based on this one 5-shot group, and only at 100 yards, I set the 0 for that cluster of 4. And now, in the next video, I'm going to show you the actual loading process, like how I actually seat bullets and the scale I use, and on and on. And then we're going to take you out and break the barrel in. And I'm going to do it at long range. So I'm going to go out and just bang away at steel all day and get rid of the remaining, whatever it was, 80 rounds, because I think we shot 20 here. Yep, so of that first 100 round box of Sierra Match Kings, 20 of them were for this testing, and the remaining 80 I'm going to take out to the farm, loaded with reloader 15 and at that lowest charge weight, and go bang away. And in that process, I'll also clean the barrel too and show you how we do that. So we basically get water capacity for Gordon's, dabble a little bit with these loads just to find a contender to break the barrel in with, and then get 80 rounds total down the barrel, then clean it thoroughly, then shoot the remaining 20 rounds of that first 100, and then the gun's in a position where it's ready to give you good data. So after that, 80 rounds, clean it, 20 rounds, then the gun's ready for ladder testing. And in my opinion, not a minute sooner. If you want to do the ladder test, like I said, in the first 100 rounds, be prepared to chase your tail. If you're experienced and you're comfortable with that and you don't get discouraged by something that shot well moving around on you and changing where it is, and you have to chase the charge weight and fire it around, if you're comfortable with that, start your ladder tests in the first 100 rounds. If you're not, do this. And you don't have to break the barrel in at long range. I do, because I'm so familiar with this process that's actually interesting to me. Where banging away at 100 yards is a waste of my time. I'd rather go out and practice and have some fun and show you guys, lower the intimidation factor, so you guys can see that you don't have to have the most polished load you've ever had in your life to shoot at long range. You just need something decent, and you guys are going to be shocked at how well this haphazard, half-assed, slapped-together load shoots at long range. Most of you are going to be blown away. So don't get too wrapped around the axle on barrel break-in. It doesn't matter. Just go out, don't get the gun hot, play around with it a little bit, start to familiarize yourself with it, and learn how to get comfortable and worry about where the buttstock is, and that stuff's way more important. Try these testing metrics. Try shooting at cardboard with simple orange dots. Like, start incorporating this stuff in your process. Don't get wound around the axle on the actual barrel break-in, shoot and clean, shoot 5 and clean, 10 and clean. That doesn't matter. Go out there, don't get in a hurry, don't get it hot, have some fun. So that's it for now. Next video will be, again, showing you the loading process and going out to the farm and banging away. So like, subscribe, share with your buddies, all that good stuff. We'll see you on the next one.